What's up, everybody? My name is Brad, and today I've got another book review for you. Today I'm going to be talking about Where All Light Tends to Go by David Joy. I want to give a shout out real quick to Kevin, the Well-Read Beard, and I'll put a link to his channel down in the description. On his channel, he likes sort of the Appalachian noir type books, and he was talking about David Joy and Ron Rash. And that's where I found out about David Joy, was from his channel. So give a shout out to him. I appreciate that. His channel is really cool. He has tons of book reviews. He has songs that he sings on there that he's written himself. And he's a fellow Kentuckian. So definitely go check him out. He's a pretty cool guy. Like I said, this is Where All Light Tends to Go by David Joy. This is my first David Joy book. This is also David Joy's debut novel. It's relatively short. It's only like 260 pages, so I got through it pretty quick. But this is, like I said, sort of an Appalachian, maybe noir type book. It's set in Cashiers, North Carolina, and the Appalachian Mountains area. I really am drawn to stories that take place in Appalachia. Like I said, I live in Kentucky, so I'm relatively close to the Appalachian Mountains. And so stories in that setting, they're usually sort of outlaw, lawless, bootleggers and moonshiners, and there's usually lots of drugs and violence and stuff involved in those type of stories. I'm just really drawn to stories about that, and particularly that setting. But this book was great. It was fantastic. I really loved it. Easy 5-star read. It is sort of a bleak, uncompromising, sort of gritty, real world sort of interpretation of how life is. Life for people, it's not always rainbows and flowers and unicorns and all that. Some people have crappy lives and crap they have to deal with all the time, and sort of not a whole lot of hope to look forward to. And I feel like David Joy really captured the essence of that, sort of the really down-to-earth, storytelling that I'm really into. I'm going to try not to spoil anything like all my other book reviews. I'm only going to be talking about what's on the blurb on the inside of the book. Like I said, this takes place in Cashiers, North Carolina. It's sort of a small area, in the mountains of Appalachia. The story focuses on Jacob McNeely. I believe he's probably about 18 years old at the time the story takes place. At the very beginning of the book, he's dropped out of high school a few years previous, and at the beginning of the book, he's watching what would have been his graduating class graduate. So he's about 18 years old. And the story, it's a coming-of-age story for Jacob, and he's a teenager, and he quickly has to deal with, more adult circumstances and sort of scenes of violence and things like that, adult situations that he really has to come to grips with, come to terms with, and handle those like an adult. So he's grown up really fast. His father is a meth kingpin, basically. He sort of runs the meth in the area that they live in. So all of Jacob's life, he's been around and dealt with violence and drugs, and that's just sort of the situation that he's used to. And really, this is a story about like I said, Jacob, and being born into certain circumstances and certain situations. Sort of the blood is thicker than water, the deep family ties with that, and his choices that he has to make, whether he is going to choose to partake in this life that he was born into, if he feels bound to it, if this is sort of his destiny to be sort of basically captured by this life of violence and drugs and things, following in his father's footsteps, and sort of giving up any chance of, I guess, a normal life or a chance of escape, and just sort of I can't think of the word I'm looking for, sort of accepting the terms of his life, sort of the cards that he was dealt, dealing with the drugs and stuff. Even his family, not necessarily his father, but his family going back, it talked about they were bootleggers and outlaws and moonshiners going back for generations. So even just the name McNeely has a certain weight that it holds, that you're a McNeely, that's the life that you're part of, and it's really hard for him to break out of that, break those bonds, break those boundaries, and try to escape to a better life, or more of a life that he's wanting. Really, the only hope, sort of the only light that is in his life, is his girlfriend Maggie. They knew each other growing up as children. They used to play together all the time, and he had always believed that she was better than this place. She was always destined for bigger and better things, and she's going off to college, and it's sort of that struggle if he wants to sort of escape and go off with her, or if he's going to, like I said, be accepting of the life that he was dealt and just fall into the life of the violence and falling into his father's footsteps, being a drug dealer and things like that. And for him, it's not as simple as, just leaving, just packing up and going. He feels bound to this place in a way, bound to this life. It's sort of ingrained in him, flows through his blood. He feels like, his father's, a violent, pretty horrible person, and he feels like, that same blood flows through him, and that maybe even if he does escape the place, that even if he does escape the place, that life will still follow him, since it's in his blood. So those are sort of the struggles that he's dealing with, is wanting to get away, wanting to get out of it, but really not seeing any hope or any other destination other than what his father is doing as well. Like I said, it's pretty bleak, sort of hopeless book. Like I said, I really like that. It's real life. Like I said earlier, real life is not always happy-go-lucky. There's bleakness and hopelessness in it, which I really like. If you're into shows like Breaking Bad's my favorite TV show, but Breaking Bad, Sons of Anarchy, The Sopranos, shows like that, I think you'll really enjoy this book. I saw a few reviews where people were complaining about the ending to the book, how it was bleak and it's not a happy ending, and which I feel like that's a weird thing to complain about. Not everything needs a happy ending, and just because it doesn't have a happy ending, I don't think that should reflect negatively on the book, because that's the story it's trying to tell. It's telling a real sort of down-to-earth story, and not everything ends happy for everybody. So if you're in any of those shows that I mentioned, I think you'll really dig this book. For me, I really enjoyed the ending. I thought it was a very fitting, satisfying conclusion to the story that David Joy was telling. And I feel like it would have felt off if it was, suddenly a magical, Hollywood happy ending. So I don't want to spoil anything, but it's sort of a bittersweet, dour ending. But I really enjoyed the ending to it. I want to read a passage out of here that includes the title of the book and the passage. Sometimes when a book mentions the title along in the story, it can sort of be cheesy, but I really like how David Joy did it here. I'm going to skip a few parts because there are plot spoilers in it, but I'm not going to read anything that's going to spoil anything for anybody. The preaching was just a murmur in the room now, white noise that played in the background while my thoughts spoke and held me in a trance. I reckon the closest I'd ever come to understanding an idea as big as God was the light that flickered in the eyes of the living, the light that Daddy never had. I'd seen that light in every living thing from squirrels to elders, and I'd seen that light burn out when it ended. I thought about that hog in Whiteside Cove, and I could see that hog's eyes clear as day. The way those lights had cut out like a switch had been turned when the pig huffed one last bloody breath. There was a place where all light tends to go, and I reckon that was heaven. So I really like that passage in the book. It sort of reflects Jacob's thoughts on life and death, and also sort of the hopelessness that he sort of feels in life as well. Sorry, dropped my bookmark. The life and death, and sort of the fading light that he feels his life is coming to at a certain point where, there's this destination that he wants to be at, but he feels, that light is fading and he's just going to be stuck where he's at, following in the footsteps of his father. But like I said, this is a 5-star read. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to be reading David Joy's other 2 novels. I have here The Weight of This World and The Line That Held Us. Both are set in Appalachia. I think they're both set in North Carolina. So I believe that's where David Joy's from. But again, this is a 5-star read. If you're into any of those TV shows I mentioned, like Breaking Bad, Sons of Anarchy, The Sopranos, I think you'll really enjoy this book. If you're into sort of the Appalachian setting, I think you'll really enjoy this book too. Like I said, 5-star read. Really looking forward to checking out his other books. But if you've read this book, Where All Light Tends to Go by David Joy, I'd like to hear your thoughts about it down in the comment section. Whether you liked it, didn't like it, reasons why. But thanks for spending your time with me today. Again, my name is Brad, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.